This is the Hope Not Note podcast,
where we answer your questions and share inspirational stories to fill your soul with hope.
Our mission is to empower hope to those who have been plagued by note.
I'm Dr. Dylan Caswell.
And I'm Brandy.
And we're here to bring you out of the note and into hope.
Welcome to the Hope Not Note podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Dylan, how are you today?
Doing great. How are you doing?
Good. Happy February.
Happy February.
Can you believe it?
I cannot.
No.
I cannot, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah, me too. I feel like the year is flying by so far.
It's flying by and we've been just living in a snow globe.
Yes.
Which happens when you live where we live, but lot of shoveling this year.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my hope story. So stick around for my hope story later.
Shoveling and hope, huh?
Yes.
Interesting.
Our question today is from a listener named Trayvon, and he asks, I've been seeing athletes talking more about their faith and spirituality in different interviews, specifically Ohio State, Notre Dame, even Patrick Mahomes this past championship game.
Go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs. So he asks, what role do you think plays, like this faith and spirituality plays in athletes' success?
Trayvon, thanks for the question. My short answer is everything.
Yeah.
And we'll expand on that. We could just end it there, but for people listening, like
3-minute podcast,
more in it. When we start seeing this, I think the first question we ask is it the yellow car effect, or what I'll call now the rubber duck on Jeep's dashboard effect, or hey, there's a lot of red cars on the road effect, where you're looking for something, you're seeking something, so you start finding it more, right? So if you're kind of looking for faith-related things, then are you seeing it more on these big stages? And my answer to that is I think no. I think it's really cool seeing what's happening in sports, that these athletes on the biggest stages, winning some of the biggest moments in their life in these emotional interviews, pause, and the first thing that they do is give love and credit to our Lord. I don't remember seeing that as often as it is now growing up. Like athletes would win and they first thank God and then go into it, but now they're staying on it. And it used to be like the reporter would get kind of awkward and take the microphone away a little bit. Some channels would try to cut it, and now they can't, because every athlete with faith, they're not hiding it anymore. They're putting it on the forefront. And it gives me so much hope for the next generation of watching sports. I think everyone in the older generations, they get worried about the next generation coming up. Oh, they're on social media all the time. They don't work hard. They're lazy. They have all these false expectations of how to make it in the world. Maybe some of that's happening, but let's look at the other side of this. They have better leaders than I can say I had in sports growing up. Like nowhere, like when I was in high school, to go to youth group, to be Christian, you were a nerd. Like that was not cool to do that as an athlete. It was like, no, I'm an athlete. I'm gonna stay away from the kumbaya kids. Like not going to that. Chris Brandy is a kumbaya kid, so it's perfect.
Kumbaya kid, but I was also an athlete.
But you're also an athlete, and like you're an outlier on so many different things. But for me, it was like I always thought these kids were loving. I didn't think they were cool. And when like some of our friends were like dabbling in that, we were kind of like, dude, you all right? Like, what's going on? Like, how come you're not over here with us doing this? And like now it's like these top athletes are making it cool. They're making it cool to be baptized. They're making it cool to be wearing clothes that have scripture on them, wearing clothes that say Jesus already won. Like they're making it cool where the athletes now, the younger ones, they have to be curious. And that's the first step, is just having some curiosity. Man, this guy that I look up to that wins all these games is talking about this thing that is his foundation. I should probably learn about that a little bit. I should probably look into all that. So I do think that athletes are speaking about it more in major moments after games and press conferences on their social media. It's one of those benefits, I would say, of social media and these bigger stages. So what does it actually do for the athlete? We have to look at these athletes at Ohio State, Notre Dame, Patrick Mahomes, any athlete that is getting media coverage.
CJ Stroud was a big one this year too.
CJ Stroud, yeah. These athletes at these levels have so much burden on them. And I think from the outside, we can look at it and be like, burden? What are you talking about? Like, they got $1 million homes, contracts, they get to play a sport that many people dream to ever step foot on the field. Like, what are you talking about, burdens? Well, imagine going to your job and everything that you do is criticized. And some people are like, yeah, I have that job. Well, you're working for a boss, not a leader. Work for a leader instead of a boss, and you will be able to grow further. But we see this, like, I can't imagine everything you do gets criticized. Oh, you're a flopper. Oh, you cheated. The refs are on your side. You lost to Michigan. It doesn't matter that you won a national championship. You lost to Northern Illinois. You play a weak schedule, a soft schedule. It's a fluke that you made it there. And as the team, the players, they have to have a way of not paying attention to that and filtering it out because the best athletes, they play with freedom on the field. And to have freedom, you have to know your identity. And if your identity is solely on the sport or on the achievement, and you don't achieve that, your world comes crashing down. When you know your identity and you know who you are because you have a relationship with God who has told you, this is how I've made you, and you put the work in, and if it's my will for you to win this game, you're going to win it, right? So think about what that does if you happen to be on the other side, like Notre Dame, and you lose this game. It hurts emotionally because you put so much into it, but you get to walk off that field saying, I already won. Like I'm in this for salvation.
Yeah, my identity isn't shaken because I lost the game.
Because I lost the game. It makes you want to work harder and come back and do it, but you can also look and say, like, I don't have regrets because I put in everything I could to that. And it wasn't his will for us to win for whatever reason that we don't know. And that's where the faith part of this comes in is like, hey, it's not always going to go the way that we want it to, but it happened in a particular way for a specific reason that we don't know right now, that we may know in the future, but right now we don't get to know that. And that's where like that faith aspect comes into it. So these athletes that are grounded in their identity as being a child of God, knowing who their creator is, knowing who they are able to play freely. They have a better ability to adapt to these stressors that are put on them. It says in Matthew, for those that are carrying heavy burdens, bring them to me and then you'll find rest. Well, when is performance gains made? You put the work in, but as you are doing the work, your performance decreases. And then in recovery and rest is when you get stronger. So while you have this thing to give your burdens that allows you to rest, that allows you to recover and come back better, super compensation, wow, why would you not want to have that as your foundation? When athletes are out there and they're playing, thinking of what the doubters are going to say, mess up this pass, man, I shouldn't have transferred. Guy doesn't have good footwork. He doesn't have good arm strength. Like Patrick Mahomes, he openly talks about his faith and talks about his mom and his dad leading him to church through his youth, and that every Saturday night before games, they're in the chapel and praying. And before every game, he goes down to the goalpost, says a prayer, and it sets him. And he goes, it allows me to play free. It allows me to know who I am. You're not thinking of what happens if I make a mistake because it doesn't change you because you know who you are. So summing it up, it gives you the ability to play freely, which allows you to stay focused and have fun doing it. Two, if things happen to not fall the way that you want them to, there's an emotional response, but it just doesn't come crashing down. You don't lose your identity. Third, it gives you better coping, better recovery. And I want to bring up there's research on this, and I say actual research, right? Not like health.com, let us push an agenda, but like peer-reviewed academic journals showing players in the NFL, whether they're in the NFL or they've played in the NFL and now they're not in the NFL, they have better coping and less aggression and anger towards things that was related to their attendance at religious services. So here's a sport everyone's like, oh, these guys, they're violent, they're aggressive. No wonder why they get out and they have all these things that are happening and it's brain injuries and this, and that. Well, the ones with a religious faith background that are practicing it are having a much different outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And the research showed that these guys actually have less aggression in the general population compared to people that didn't play in the NFL. And it was an interesting study. It was like over 2/3 of NFL players reported that they are very religious and attended weekly services for church, which is like, yeah, there's a lot more happening that allows these athletes to be successful on the stages that they're at with the pressures that they have on them.
And when I think of the word success, I don't necessarily go to like, oh, I have my life together, or oh, I won this game for like the professional athletes. Like success, in my opinion, is very much the things that you just said. Like it's living in freedom and it's working hard and doing your best. Like that's what success is all about. And so I chuckle at the question in a way because like yes, they're having success in the sense of like they're professional athletes who just won major games. And like that could be viewed as successful, but I think that the true success is the holy freedom and holy confidence in which these athletes who have faith play with. And not just play with, but truly like live their lives with. And it's for me as someone who I remember being in third grade and thinking I wanted to be famous someday so that I could be that one person who had faith in the Hollywood world or whatever. Or like, I'm 5'4". I'm not going to make it to the WNBA, but like I thought maybe I could make it to the WNBA and like share my faith on a platform. And I've always had that desire, even as like a little girl. And so it's cool. Like I didn't see that in athletes growing up, but seeing that more and more is really beautiful. And it makes me excited to see how much more it's going to grow into.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to add on there because it's my favorite verse, Romans 5:3-5. When these, like specifically looking at Ohio State and Notre Dame this year,
Yeah. Go Buckeyes.
the the adversity that they faced through the season, to get through that adversity, you have to have the understanding that being a Christian is not all it's not easy. It's not always happy and joyful. There's adversity, but having faith allows you to know that this adversity is happening for a reason. And that if you persevere through that, you produce endurance, endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not disappoint. So when you lose to Northern Illinois, when you're having the best season, but you lose to your biggest rival, when your head coach is threatening, even though they're ranked in the top 5 in the nation, to lose his job because you lost to Michigan. Like the adversity that's faced, how do you get through that? You have to come together as a team. And to come together as a team, you have to come to the source of understanding, hey, this happened, but this doesn't happen to us. This happened for us to bring us together, to allow us to persevere, to allow us to move forward, to allow us to go out and achieve greatness. If we put in the work in due time, it will be rewarded. They had every opportunity to just throw up the white flag on the season. Oh, it's not our year. Thought it was going to be, but man, we got beat up pretty good. Like how are we going to play Texas? How are we going to play Georgia? How are we going to take on the SEC? They overcame it. And they blew out these other teams that were projected to be the top teams. And to me, that only happens when you have a solid rock of a foundation that does not sink when things get hard.
I also want to add there's a beauty in specifically these college athletes who are finding this foundation or have established this foundation before they're like 22 years old.
Yeah.
Like that is very rare and very beautiful, and I'm thankful to be witnessing it. It was really cool. Some of the athletes said, like, I don't think it's a joke that, or I don't think it's a coincidence that these two programs who have spoken their faith very publicly the entire season are the two in the championship.
Right.
And I loved hearing the athlete acknowledge that, and I loved hearing the athletes who lost still give glory to God, because that's the point. That's the whole, like, all of this having a foundation. It's like win or lose, you already won.
Yeah.
Win or lose, like you're already saved. And so it's really cool getting to see that, especially in such young athletes, because it makes me think that one, I think of our nephews.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting, you know, they're teenagers, but if they start seeing this more and more, they're gonna gain a curiosity. And then I think of like little kids who their parents love sports, but now their parents can say like, sorry, Dill, your like the kid's not a nerd. Look at this. You know what I mean? Like imagine having kids who are nervous about sharing their faith because they think they're going to be a nerd, like Dylan thought. And like, granted, you did that is what it is, like whatever. But now they can be like, yeah, but look at this athlete who's sharing their faith publicly. Like that person's not a nerd. And like having those different role models to look up to, I think is really cool for people with children as well.
Yeah, and little did I know that these nerds had it figured out far before I did.
Yeah.
So shout out to them. But I want to bring up another quick point with this. I think it was the Ohio State running back that during the game kind of lost his cool and punched one of the players on the opposite team in the chin. I don't remember if it was a Notre Dame game or if it was like in the semifinals, but it was one of the games running back punched the dude in the chin, right? And here's this team that's publicly talking about their faith, baptized on campus, baptized hundreds of students, you know, outwardly wearing these shirts, Jesus already won, like putting this on display. And the running back punches a guy in the face in the game, right? Like, look, like it doesn't make you perfect, but it does give you direction of what do you do when you mess up. And we didn't know this during the game, but after the game, when that running back was getting interviewed after this monumental win, one of the first things that he said was, that wasn't my character. Like I let my emotion get the best of me. My actions didn't align with my value. But since I know the Lord, I went to the sideline and immediately prayed for forgiveness. And you're like, dude, you're a running back. You should be angry, smash mouth, punching people in the face. You know, you should be angry out there, chopping these dudes down. Like, no, like, anger's only going to get you so far. And I've worked with running backs that play angry. And here's what ends up happening. They get to the open field. They have open territory to run for a 40, 50, 60, 70-yard touchdown. And instead of running towards the goal, they turn back to go make contact with someone because they want to hit people.
That's actually happened?
It's actually
Oh my
happened.
God.
Yeah, for like phenomenal running backs that still set like school records. But it was like, buddy, you know your goal is to get to the end zone, not to turn back and hit this guy, right? And it'd be like they have the sideline, but instead they turn back to the middle of the field looking for the safety. And like they would run him over and like get tripped up and it looks cool on film, but it's like, hey, the scoreboard looks cooler.
Yeah.
Like keep running towards there. But it's when you're playing angry all the time, you're not focused on the right things. You're not doing your job, right? And I know this is heavy on football, but it's true for every sport. When it's a team sport, you have to do your job, not other people's job. You try to do other people's job and fail to do your job, your team gets hurt. You have to do your job. When you play angry and you're looking for the next guy to hit because you just want to go make contact and you blow your blocking assignment, you just hurt your team for selfishly being angry. And having the ability to say, I lost my cool. I'm going to ask for forgiveness. This is not my character. This is not the actions I want to be displaying. In a heated moment, to be able to do that
Mhm.
is incredible. But having faith, knowing the Lord allows you to do that and then come back and play with more of a level head, right? As an athlete, you never want moments to be too high. You never want moments to be too low. When moments get too high, you make uncharacteristic mistakes. I think back to like the Cavs, right? Was it J.R. Smith that there was a few seconds left in the game they could have won and he just like completely screwed it up, right? The moment was too high, lost his cool, forgot the very basics of basketball. If the moment's too low, all of a sudden you're out of the fight. It doesn't matter what I do and go out there. I can't chip away. Um, let's ask some Falcons fans about the Patriots Super Bowl and not getting too low in a moment and realizing, hey, just one play at a time, we can come back to this. And then all of a sudden, boom, the Patriots come back and win the Super Bowl, set NFL history for the biggest comeback in a Super Bowl, right? Like we can't let moments get too high. We can't let them get too low. And the only way that I think that that can be done is by knowing your foundation.
Enough said.
Enough said.
Yeah. Mic drop at the end there.
But we're gonna pick it back up for Hope Story.
Yeah, hope stories. I know I teased mine, but I'm actually gonna share two. One because I think it's very relevant to this. But it was really cool. We were recently having a conversation with a person that I used to coach with, and it turns out that one of the players that we used to coach, who's currently playing basketball at a Division 1 Catholic school, as a freshman, is like leading the team in prayer before and after every like practice, and wants to start like a Bible study with his teammates and things like that. And I just like this kid always had faith, but it's cool to see him like step into a leadership position as a freshman and be like, no, we're doing this because we're at a Catholic school and we can. And it's really cool to hear that. So that's one hope story. The other hope story that I teased at the beginning is simple and sweet, but like we've been getting so much snow here, and it's been really cool to see our neighbors shoveling their driveways. Like I know that that sounds like silly, but we have neighbors who are in their 70s who's out there like shoveling his driveway. And I just think of like it would be so much easier to just pay someone else to do it. And sure, they probably do have a plow that comes once in a while, but that doesn't mean that he's not going out there and like taking time to shovel. And I think what an athlete to be able to do that and to be like well enough and healthy enough to, and this is not like fluffy, soft, no offense, but like Midwest snow. This is like lake effect snow, like real. I mean, don't get me wrong, Midwest snow can be rough too, but like lake effect snow is a different beast. So seeing like, a 70, 80-year-old out there shoveling has been really cool. And then just like getting to be a team with you and like how quick shoveling goes when like you have someone to do it with. So
Yeah,
that's my hope story. Sorry if you think that's silly.
No, I love it. And it brings up a couple of things that I'll share quickly. It's funny shoveling together and our driveway's kind of a down slope and we have this one shovel that's like the best shovel I've ever used in my life. This thing is incredible. It is like wide and it just moves snow. It doesn't lift it, it moves it. So we have the moving shovel and then we have the lifting shovel. And you can just get running with this shovel down the driveway, but then you hit an ice bump and this handle jabs right into your stomach and almost knocks the wind out of you every time. So I'm like in the morning running down the driveway, oh, gut shot, keeps you resilient. But I think my hope story tags along with that. It's not a specific story, but I think it gives the idea of what you're saying. What an athlete to be out there shoveling this day after day after day. And I think we talked a lot about these athletes that are on the big stage, right? Like the national championship for college football, uh, always in the media in the NFL, and like CJ Stroud coming in, not this year, but previous years as a rookie, and like what he was able to accomplish and in every moment, knowing anytime a player gets injured, him going down on a knee and praying immediately. And we talk about these things, we're like, wow, that's so good that they're doing this. But what we forget is you're an athlete, which means that you can live the same values that they're living in their daily life. Sure, you're not in front of a camera, in front of millions of people around the world, but you're probably leading a team, leading a family, leading a friend group, whatever it may be, and you can live out these values. Like the Ohio State player. I need to step away for a second and pray for forgiveness because that was out of line, that was out of character. I'm sorry to my team. Let me take a minute to get myself better to come back to help out the team. Like we can take these lessons of sacrifice, of working hard, knowing that the reward will come in due time if it is His will. We can apply that to all these other areas of our life, whether it's work, whether it's in family. So it's not, to me, that's the beautiful thing is, to me, it's never been about sports. Like, I love sports. Like, oh, I could watch football, basketball, baseball game all day. Like, I love sports. Throw hockey in there too, lacrosse, like wrestling,
Rugby.
does not matter. Like
Yeah.
the Olympics, like I want to watch every event.
Yeah.
Like so
Track.
hyped for table tennis.
Yeah.
But what I love in it is when it brings out the good, the sacrifice, the discipline, the servant-based leadership, when it brings out the good in it, and we're able to see this on a big level and then go, wow, like it's not just about the sport, it's about the values that are gained in doing it. And if you're not competing anymore, it doesn't mean that you have to let go of those values. You can carry those values with you through whatever the obstacle is that you're facing.
My encouragement to our listeners as we conclude this podcast is just like, take time to reflect on the people that, whether it be the athletes that you follow or I don't know, just like whatever you're taking in through media or through watching different sports or whatever, like ask yourself, what are the values that you can take away and apply to your life?
Yeah.
That's our little encouragement for you today. But thank you so much for watching, and we'll be back next week on Wednesday for another episode.
And if you're an athlete listening and you play football or any other sport and you get frustrated, stop throwing your equipment.
Yeah.
Like, just stop throwing helmets, spiking them down
tacky.
on the sideline. Like, that's such a poor example for youth athletes. I'm so tired of seeing that. Like, we got punished if we did that when I was playing, and it was different. Sound like an old man. It was different times
back then.
back in the day, but it was like, no, you can be frustrated, you can be upset. Don't throw your equipment.
Yeah.
Like take care of it. Set the example for others to follow. And if you do, just hey, take that moment and just go, I shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't do that either. But that's it. Have a great week, and remember, every day is not just a day to be hopeful. It's an opportunity to become hope.
The Hope Not Know podcast is meant for educational, informational, and personal development purposes only and does not constitute any health or medical advice. If you're looking for specific advice, connect with us to work with a Hope coach. The Hope Not Know podcast shall not be liable or responsible for any loss or damage allegedly arising from any information or suggestions in this podcast.